Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to display aggregate values for columns in the Vue TreeGrid component. Using the aggregate feature, you can display aggregate values in the TreeGrid footer and also show them as a child summary. First, I open my existing project where the EJ2 Vue TreeGrid package is installed and all the necessary TreeGrid modules are configured. I have added the data.js file, which has the hierarchical local JSON data, summary data, with task and subtask details. For the first object, I have added the fields, ID, name, and so on, with appropriate values. I've also added the child object with the same fields. I have assigned this object to the dataSource property, and the child records details are configured to the parent records, using the child mapping property. Using the columns directive, I have already mapped a few columns from the data source to be displayed in the tree grid. You can refer to my Vue TreeGrid Getting Started video to learn more about local JSON data binding, the link for which I've shared in the card above and description below. Let me run this application now. See, the tree grid is rendered with the local hierarchical data. First, I will show you the built-in aggregate types available in the TreeGrid component: sum, average, min, max, count, true count, and false count. I will show you a few types now. To enable aggregates, I import the aggregate module from the EJ2 Vue TreeGrid package and inject it into the TreeGrid array of provide object. Then I import the aggregates directive, aggregate columns directive, and aggregate column directive modules from the EJ2 Vue TreeGrid package. Then I need to register these modules in the Vue component with appropriate tags. I assign the aggregates directive to eAggregates, aggregate directive to eAggregate tag, aggregate columns directive to eAggregate columns, and aggregate column directive to eAggregate column. Here, I'm going to show you the sum aggregate value in the price column. I include the eAggregates to define one or more aggregate rows in the TreeGrid component. Since I'm going to define one row, I include one eAggregate. Then I include eAggregate columns to add one or more aggregate columns. Since I'm going to show one aggregate column, I include one eAggregate column. The two mandatory properties required to show aggregate columns are field and type. I specify the field as price and type as sum. I need to specify the template to be displayed in the footer by using the footer template property and assign the function footerSum. In the data method, I define the function footerSum and return the template here. Next step is to create a component for template. So, I import the createApp module from the Vue bundler and declare constant variable app and use the createApp method. I declare a variable footerTemp and define the component name, footerSum, and template. In the template, I add the span tag and access the sum value from the variable data, and then create an empty object in the data option. Assign this footerTemp component to the template section of the footerSum method. Here, you can see aggregate rows displayed for each parent in the TreeGrid hierarchy. The aggregate row at the bottom displays the sum of the price column for all the rows. Next, I add another column in the same row to compute the maximum unit price. I specify the field as unit price and type as max. I assign the function footerMax to the footer template property. In the data method, I define the function footerMax and will return the template. I declare variable footerTemp1 and define the component name footerMax. In the template, access the maximum value from the variable data. Assign this template to the footerMax function. The aggregate row at the bottom displays the maximum of the unit price column for all the rows with child summary. By default, child summary values are shown when adding aggregates. To avoid this, I include the showChildSummary property in eAggregate tag and set its value to false. See the TreeGrid now, only one aggregate row is displayed in the footer. Next, I will show you how to add a custom aggregate. Here in this example, I'm going to show the count of records that have frozen seafood category using the custom aggregate property. To show the custom aggregate in a separate row, I include another aggregate row with a column and specify the field name as category. Since I am going to use my own aggregate function, I specify the type as custom. Then include the footer template property and assign the custom footer function and define it in the data method. Then declare a variable, custom aggregate, and create another component with name custom footer. In the template section, I add the bold tag with caption as count of frozen seafood and access the custom value inside the template using the custom key from the data variable. Assign this to the template section of the custom footer method. Next, include the custom aggregate property and assign the custom aggregate function, where I'm going to write the actual logic to compute the count of category frozen seafood. I define this function in the method's object. Then, I import the getObject method from Vue Grid package to get the data source used in this sample. Inside this function, I declare the variable sample data and get the data using getObject method. Then define the variable countLength and initialize it to 0. I search each record with frozen seafood category by passing the field name in the getObject method and update the count based on the match and return it. Check the tree grid. The frozen seafood count has been displayed for the category column. Notice here, the custom aggregate is shown in a separate footer row. Here's a quick recap of what we have seen so far. I showed you how to display built-in and custom aggregates in the TreeGrid component using the footer template property. You can download a working example from the GitHub link in the description for this video below. You can also see if you're eligible for our community license, which will provide you a free license key to use our products. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this video useful, give it a like and subscribe to our channel.